is up, guys? My name is Matt and I'm the owner and founder of Techbotic. Today I'm going to cover how electricity works and how your devices gets charged. And the reason I'm doing this is to give you a little bit more information so you can be more informed in making your power decisions. There's not a whole lot of information out there and it's kind of left up to you to figure it out. So I thought I would go over with a demonstration with using water, showing how electricity and pressure and flow all work, and then I'll go into showing it with these electronic testers I have. So there's three main components that go into charging or powering a device. There is voltage, current, and resistance. Voltage can be thought of as the pressure from one end to another. Current or flow is how easily is it flowing through from that point A to point B, or how much is being flowed through. And the last part, resistance, kind of speaks for itself. It's the combination of those. So if you have a tube that's too narrow, there is too much resistance, therefore you're losing power and it's being charged now slower. So if you had like an iPhone cable, they're like notoriously narrow. You would think it wouldn't charge as quickly, but what Apple I think has figured out is if you play with that voltage and amp combo, that can make it flow easier and actually charge just as quickly with the same exact diameter cable. So with that being said, I have the water, what would be called your battery, or this bottle, and now this would be our cable. So if you think of it like this, as I pour the water in, pressure will build as it becomes more full. That pressure from point A to point B is the voltage. So with a really high voltage, over time as the battery becomes more full, eventually it will overfill, which is like damage to your battery or your laptop battery. And that's usually permanent if that's what happens. But inside your phone or inside your laptop, it has a chip that determines I need this much power at this rate. That also at the same time your USB charger has this similar chip. That's what smart charging is. That helps the two chips communicate in order to produce the right voltage and current. So if you think of the water, let's see, as the charge and how fast I'm pouring it through would be the current, and the voltage would just be the pressure, I believe, from point A to point B. So if I pour it in really quickly, you notice it gets stuck. And now it's actually charging your device slower. We're just going to sit here. Okay, so I'm going to pour it back in. We're going to take the same amount of charge and force it through the same size tube into the same size battery or bottle, but I'm going to adjust the flow or the current and it will actually charge it faster. Stay. So you notice I'm pouring it a lot slower and it's not backing up. Therefore, no power is being lost. And I'm giving a little bit more speed, more speed, more speed, more speed. And there's no pressure buildup. So that idea is changing either voltage, which is the pressure, or changing the amps, which is the flow. You can actually charge something quicker. Again, it's going to adjust through the different charge stages as the bottle becomes more full. So that's why like Qualcomm's quick charge is that same principle. It puts through a really high voltage at a lower flow to allow your battery to charge quicker, because when your battery is low, there's less pressure. As you're pouring this electricity into this battery, pressure is building because how electricity really works, or how a charge works, it's negatively charged electrons. So that being said, which I have said that a lot, I just noticed, you are taking two magnets that are negatively attracted. So as you do that, they push apart. So that's that principle of the pressure building and building. So as that happens, if your phone is made correctly, as it should be, it will tell the charger, hey, I need a slower voltage or amp or both, so that it trickle charges and doesn't damage your phone. So now let me show you with some actual electronics how the same principle works. Alright, so let's get into the electronics. First, I'm going to tell you guys how to test or figure out why your device is charging slowly with the free method, and that just takes pen and paper and your current charger. Take your current cable and take your charging USB adapter and bring your phone down to 0. Once it's down to 0, plug it in, turn it off, and measure how long it takes to charge with a certain USB wall adapter and a particular cable. Once you've done that, you can change out the cable for a different one and do the exact same thing, and there you've just split tested to see what the difference between your two cables are. After that, I would suggest trying a different USB adapter and doing the exact same thing and comparing the two numbers. You'll definitely, probably, more than likely, see a difference between the two, especially if one's older than the other or you're using a longer versus shorter cable. And that leads me into exactly that. I have a 10-foot cable here that's really messy, and this sweet braided 1-foot cable. They are a different type of cable. One is a micro and one is a type C, but just to show you the difference, the one on the left, the gray one, is much thicker than the one on the right, this 10-foot one. And if you remember what I was saying earlier, flow and pressure play a role in how easily the power goes from one end to another. So a 10-foot cable, the pressure isn't going to stay or maintain from one end to the next. So a shorter cable and a wider cable will allow it to flow easier and quicker from point A to point B. So that's a really easy way to get a faster charge, is try a thick, shorter cable, and braided will make it last longer. So if you want to get a tool to measure this with numbers and you don't want to spend, a couple hours charging your devices, there's these USB Voltmeters, and they come in different shapes and sizes. The one that's white here is my favorite because it has dual plugs on each end, so you can test it from the charger into here and then out the other side. Or you can just plug it in directly, which I'm about to show you. So it has a little LCD display, and on the display it shows the voltage and it shows the amps. That is, again, the pressure and the flow or the current. So we'll plug in this 10-foot cable, and I'll plug it in the other end. Now I'm tangled, making lots of noise. And this speaker is a low powered device, so it doesn't require much charge, and it doesn't require so it's not going to require many amps. So if you can see here, hopefully the amps are really low. They're below, it's a 0.11 and fluctuating to 0.12. And again, this is the long cable. I don't have a shorter one here to show you, but on the next part I will show you what the big difference is with this load tester. But this is a really great way to see how fast your device is charging with the cable and the adapter, really cutting down on the time you'd need to sit there, run your battery down, charge it, test again. And it also gives you the milliamps, so you can see how much power has been returned to your battery. So this is a great way, a $10 fix or tool that you can really verify if a company's claims are true with a cable or true with the USB wall adapter. But this last one, this is my favorite tool that I like to play with. It's a load tester. It has a little LCD display, and on the back it has these dials that allow you to adjust the amps and voltage being pulled through. So you can really see, hey, is this going to be able to put that load that they advertise? So let me get this short cable that I was showing you earlier, and I'll plug it into this. And I didn't go over this, but on the back of the adapters, they say what the output is. The output of this one, having Qualcomm 3, has a variable rate voltage. The voltage goes up and down. There's these different stages that it allows. So on this one, it says 3.6 to 6.5 at 3 amps. And that puts out roughly, I think it's close to 15 volts, or actually that's the 12 volt, 1.5 amps. Sorry, I wasn't doing math, I was guessing. And then it has a 6.5 to 9 volt at 2 amps. So it increases the voltage and lowers the flow. So the pressure goes up, the flow goes down, allowing for a smoother charge like I showed you with the water. This one you definitely won't be able to see, but it's 5 volt, 1 amps, that's at 5 watts. So 15 watts to 5 watts will make a huge difference. So if I plug it into the 5 volt 1 amp USB wall adapter and then plug it in, also I forgot to mention it has each different kind of port, from a lightning to micro to mini, and we're just going to plug it in, and there's a little fan on top to keep it cool. And on the back side the display shows, and it shows the 5 volt, and it's close to 1 amp, and as I get above that it dropped the voltage considerably because it can't put out that wattage. And as I bring it up even higher, this display will turn off and eventually die. And as I bring it back down, it turns back on. So this is a pretty weak USB wall adapter, and it only allows you to really power something like a, Google Chromecast or your USB Bluetooth speaker. But let's try this 10-foot cable. Same exact thing, and what we're going to find here is that even though we've changed the cable, it's going to cut out at the same point because this wall adapter doesn't go over 1 amp, so you're not really going to tell a difference between cables when you have such a low amp output. So let me move to this 15 watt one where you'll really see the difference, keeping the cable the 10 foot. And the theory here is the longer the cable, the less pressure. And I'm going to crank it up, and it's dropping pretty quickly, and it's kind of showing similar numbers to that 5 volt 1 amp, and at about 1.7 it's still on, but not enough to power the screen. It cuts out. Now let's move back to the short cable. And we're going to crank this up. It's also a Type-C, which is awesome because it allows power to flow both ways easily. Like I don't know if you know much about the MacBooks, but you can charge from your USB ports and charge in. But we're at 5 volts, 0.2 amps, and I'm going to keep cranking. We're now at 3 amps, 4.87, so it's keeping close to that 5 volt range that electronics prefer, but it's keeping the amps really high. And so that just goes to show the difference between, this really long thin cable and this really short fat cable. So again, my main recommendations for you guys are figure out what your device is, how fast they're charging, whether you have a tool or you do it, the old school way. And once you've figured out what might be the culprit, I definitely recommend probably getting a shorter braided cable, or you might have a pretty old charger. Not all chargers are the same, so if you're using maybe an old school Apple charger straight out of the wall, those are probably 5 volt 1 amp, and you probably need to upgrade it if you have multiple. Or even better, get like a dual quick charge one that allows you to have that variable rate. Not all the devices charge with that Qualcomm technology. If you have an iPhone, it doesn't have that chip to support it, but you'll still get a faster charge than using an older school one. So if you guys have questions, leave a comment and subscribe if you like what we're putting out, and I'll catch you next week.